Hello to my family, welcome back to my channel. So, today we are going to discuss the manager and the consultant or researcher relationship. So, in the last lecture of research methods and skills, we have discussed that if a manager thinks that he is having no grip over the problem solving of any domain, so he have no expertise regarding that domain, so he can hire a consultant or a researcher from the organization or from the environment or external sources. So, a few points a manager should keep in mind while selecting or hiring any researcher or consultant, which are: number one, the role and expectations of both parties are made explicit. Both parties means the researcher or consultant or that organization or industry, right? So the employees of that organization should know their desired roles and their help towards that researcher, which they can provide to that researcher or consultant. And the consultant or researcher should also know how to approach those employees in order to get different solutions or different resources from that environment, or sorry, that industry, right? So this means that everyone involved in the situation or task knows exactly what they are supposed to do and what is expected of them, right? So it's like having a clear job descriptions or a set of instructions to each person involved in that problem solving skill. So this help avoid confusion and ensures that everyone knows their part in achieving the goal, that is to solve the immediate problem, or in order to get benefit, long term benefit for that industry or organization. So the second point is relevant philosophies and value systems of the organization are clearly stated and constraints, if any, are communicated. It means that every organization has certain beliefs and principles that guides its actions, right? So these can include things like honesty, integrity, teamwork, and so on. So making these philosophies and values clear means that everyone knows what principles the organization stands for and should follow. So additionally, any limitations or rules that needs to be followed are communicated as well. So meaning people understanding what they can and can't do within those boundaries. This helps maintain consistency and alignment within the organizations, right? So the third point is a good rapport is established with the researchers and between the researchers and the employees in the organization, enabling the full cooperation of the leader. So a good rapport, a good trust should be developed between the consultant or the researcher and between the employees as well. So, if in case a manager should hire a researcher, a consultant from within the organization, it means that it is internal researcher or internal consultant. So, there are few pros and cons of hiring internal consultant or a researcher. So, let's bump into it that what are the advantages of internal consultants or researchers. So the first one is the internal team stands a better chance of being readily accepted by the employees in the subunit of the organization where research need to be done. So if a manager hires internal consultant or researcher, maybe it's a single person or a group of researchers from the internal organization. So what is the benefit of that? That there's already a level of comfort developed among the employees in that specific team or researcher. So it will be easier for the manager to take the information that is necessary to solve the problems from the employees of the institution. So second thing is the team requires much less time to understand the structure, the philosophy, and the climate, and the functioning and work systems of the organization. So if a manager hires internal consultant or researcher, so a very less time will be required in understanding the structure, the nature of the organization, the nature of the roles of the organizations, how what is the climate of the environment, either it is positive or negative, what are the pros and cons of different uh, departments of that organization. So these things are already known by the organizer, sorry, or the consultant or the researcher. So there is very less time required in order to reach towards the appropriate solution towards any specific problem, right? The third one is they are available to implement the recommendations after the research findings have been accepted. This is very important because any bugs in the implementation of the recommendations may be removed with their help. They're also available to evaluate the effectiveness of the change and to consider further changes if and when necessary. So, once there are possible outcomes or solutions to a problem, once the researcher or consultants they are familiar that what to do, that after that, because they are the part of that organization, they are also involved in the implementations of those solutions on the respective organization or any field or industry, so they can implement those solutions for that problems as well, right? So this is another advantage. The fourth one is the internal team might cost considerably less than an external team for the department enlisting help in problem solving, because they will need less time to understand the system due to their continuous involvement with various units of organizations. For problems of low complexity, the internal team would be ideal. So they will take less money as well. So they will be cheap as compared to the external consultants or researchers, and they will already they will be already the part of that specific organization and team, so they will help in all the domains whenever. So let's see the disadvantages of consultant researcher. If we hire an internal consultant, so there are some disadvantages as well. The first one is, in view of their long tenure as internal consultants, the internal team may quite possibly fall into a stereotype way of looking at the organization and its problems. This inhibits any fresh ideas and perspectives that might be needed to correct the problem. This is definitely a handicap for situation in which weight issues and complex problems are to be investigated. So the first disadvantage is that the internal consultants they have a stereotyped way of looking that specific organization and those problems, and their perspective is not broader because they're already the part of that organization, so they will deal the problem with the same mindset. So they are considered as handicapped for situations in which there might be the requirement of broader aspects of solving the problems, but as they are the part of that organization, so their mind is and it is difficult for them to think broadly towards the problems of that towards the solutions of that problems, right? So the second disadvantage is that there is a scope for certain powerful collidations in the organizations to influence the internal team to conceal discomfort and misrepresent certain facts. So there is a chance of biasness as well. If the researcher or consultant they're the part of that organization, there is a factor of biasness. They see different things with their own perspective, their own biased perspectives, right? So third one is, there's also a possibility that even the most highly qualified internal research team are not perceived as experts by the staff and management. So the staff and management, the employers of the organization, they do not consider that researcher or consultant very important because they're already working with them, they're already familiar with them, so they do not take them seriously, and they will not provide them proper information which is required, which is the requirement of the time, right? So fourth one is, certain organization biases of the internal research team might in some instances make the findings less objective and consequently less scientific. So if the consultant or researcher is the part of that specific organization, maybe there are some clashes with different departments, with different employees of the organization. On the basis of those clashes and biasness, it is very difficult to take out the actual information from those employees and those departments. So this is another disadvantages of hiring an internal consultant or researcher from within the organization. So as compared to this, if a manager hires external consultant or researcher, so there are few advantages of that as well, and there are few disadvantages of that as well. So what will be the advantages of hiring the external consultants? The external team can draw on a wealth of experience from having worked with different types of organization. They have had the same or similar types of problems. So if a person that is hired from the external resources, so that external researcher have a number of experience in different organizations, and they have a broader aspect of solving the problems, the immediate problems that occurred in different types of organizations. Is the external team, especially those from established research and consulting firms, might have more knowledge of current sophisticated problem solving models through their periodic training programs, which the team within the organization may not have access to. It means that if we hire external teams or external researchers or consultants, so they have more knowledge of different problems, and they have they are already familiar with different periodic training programs as well, because they have worked in different organizations, so they can solve a problem more better as compared to the internal researchers or internal consultants. So they have more knowledge, they have more experience, they have different trainings related to different problem solving skills, so they are more appropriate in solving the problems in any organization or industry as compared to the internal researchers. With advantages, there are also some disadvantages of hiring the external consultants or researchers. So before moving towards hiring external consultants, our manager tries to find any researcher or a team of researchers from within the organization. But when the manager thinks that it is not possible for the internal team to solve that immediate problem, then they will move towards hiring the external consultants. So there are always some disadvantages with the advantages of hiring the external consultants. Obviously, they will ask for more money. They are more costly. They provide less time in order to solve the problem of the organization. They need more time in order to build a good rapport with the employees of the organization. There is always a barrier between those researchers and the employees of the organization. The employees maybe they will not provide the actual information that is required to solve the problem, right? So these are all the disadvantages of hiring the external consultant. So the external team also charge additional fees, which this point is already discussed, and they also require more money in order to implement those findings which are required to solve the problem. Maybe they will provide the solutions for those problems, but to implement those findings, they will charge more. So these are all the disadvantages of hiring the external consultants or the researchers. So now we have discussed the relationship of managers with the consultants and researchers. With that, we have also discussed the advantages and disadvantages of internal consultants and the advantages of disadvantages of external consultants. So for a manager, it is very important to see the circumstances and the situation, that in which situation internal or external researcher or consultant is required. On the basis of that circumstances, it totally depends on the manager to decide either to hire from the within the organization or from the external resources. So this was all about today's lecture. So thank you so much.